Now, there's no doubt you've heard of the Sony Watchman, the revolutionary little television radio combination introduced in 1982. But what if I told you JVC beat Sony to the game by years? In the late 1970s, they introduced the JVC Model 3050, also known as the Gemineye, with a tiny little 3-inch CRT. It's full-featured, sounds great, and is totally portable. Let's take a look at it today. If you're a child of the 1980s, I have no doubts that you wanted a Sony Watchman back in the day. I know I did. A little television that you could take with you anywhere. It was totally portable. Now, these came out in 1982, but JVC actually beat Sony to the punch. Back in 1976, they introduced the Model 3050, also known as the Gemineye, a really cool, full-featured portable television and AM/FM shortwave radio. Now, this came out around the world, and I have the US version here. Now, it sounds great. It has a little 3-inch black and white CRT, and you know what? You can still use it today. Let's take a look around it. Now, I just really love this thing. I think it just has this look where you just want to get down here and just twiddle all the knobs and push all the buttons. I think it looks great. But if we start off just taking a look at the outside of it here on the front, this is the centerpiece of this entire piece of equipment. A tiny little 3-inch black and white CRT. Now, the picture on it is actually pretty good. I've got this running off of HDMI converted down to RF. So I've actually, this is the background on my computer desktop I've got running through here. But I'll show you how I did that here a little bit later. But anyway, if we look across here, right below the television, you have the TV tuning. So that's where you can select your channel. It shows up on the little display down here. Now, it's split up. Here we have the selector. You can select between VHF TV, UHF TV, or the radio. This is the TV tuning right here for VHF and UHF. Got contrast for the picture on the CRT. Your power on, off, and charge. You could actually use this with a rechargeable NiCad battery pack. It actually was a portable unit. Uses D-cell batteries, the rechargeable NiCads, or the power supply that comes with it as well, which I've got on the side here to convert from AC to DC power. But anyway, if we move back up on top, you've got the automatic frequency control here on the FM, volume control, radio band. You got FM, AM, and you got PSB, which I think is like a long wave or medium wave. Tone control for bass and treble. Now, it has a 1.5 watt output. It's like a 3-inch speaker, but it actually sounds really, really good. There's no way to really capture that on video, how good this thing actually sounds, but it's good enough that you could actually listen to this today and be happy with it. Now, it's not stereo or anything, but it's a nice full range speaker on it. So that's the front controls. If we spin this thing around to the side, this is the optional power supply, power adapter that you could get with it. Converts your 120 volts to 12 volt DC output and plugs right in here on the side. Kind of a handy thing. It would also charge the built-in rechargeable NiCad battery if you have the rechargeable battery pack. This is the radio tuning here. And when you tune the radio, it actually ends up showing up right here. So if we turn this, you can see the selector changing. It has this great little analog meter on it that lets you check the tuning or your battery level. And anything with an analog meter like that, you gotta love, right? On the side, we have the connections for external antennas. You can select between the internal telescopic aerial or the external antenna, and then you have controls for vertical hold, the picture width, brightness, everything down here that you would expect on a black and white television of the day. Just overall a very, very nice looking unit. It's something that I am so happy that I found. I actually ended up getting a pretty good deal on it. It'll show up in an upcoming Flea Market Hi-Fi episode, and one of the booth that it was at. Like I've always said during those episodes, I try to wait till the people with the booth are trying to offload all of their stuff before I buy it, and I ended up getting this for like 30 or 40% off, I think, and it was already a pretty good price judging by what they have been selling for on eBay. So I think I did pretty good on it. And you know what? I think this is something I'm going to keep around here in the studio. It's just such a good looking piece of equipment. But I know I mentioned it's something you could use today. Obviously you could use the radio. So how do we get a picture on this thing? And this will go with, you know, any older analog television. How do you get a picture on that? Well, let me show you. Well, the answer is with a contorted mess of wires and adapters. But I found that having two different converters allows me to use just about any retro TV that I want, whether it has an RF input or even baseline audio and video inputs on it. I actually picked up a couple of converters from Best Buy. The bottom one here is an AV to RF converter. The top one is HDMI to AV. So if I have a device that I just need to use the regular composite video inputs on, I have this device I could use to capture from HD. If I need to go one step further and go to RF, well, I've got that capability as well. And I just use a regular coax cable and a 300 ohm adapter to go into this particular television, and it seems to work fine. I'm able to play video on it. The audio comes through nice and clear. So yeah, it doesn't make it as portable as it was when it was new, but you still have the option to use it, you know, around the house or in your hobby room or man cave or girl cave or wherever you happen to be. You know, I like to be able to see the video on these old devices. There's just something about it. It just takes me back in time. So that's kind of the way that I do you know, retro TVs and retro video devices if they won't accept a signal from something else. So I'm sure everybody's got their own way of doing it. That's just my way. So if you have other ways of doing it that you think are better, by all means leave those down in the comments, because I'd really be interested to know, you know, if there's a better way to do it. But this is what works for me. Now, for those of you who are interested in the specs of this little guy, I'll go ahead and throw those on the screen now. That way you can see what JVC was saying about this device back in 1976, 1978. It was actually pretty impressive. I mean, it covered the full VHF and UHF TV band, just about every radio station that you would want. Has a huge antenna on it, so I can't imagine that this thing didn't get great reception regardless of how you were using it. It just seems like a very well-built heavy device. It weighs like 7 pounds. It's a huge, heavy device that it's about the size of a portable VHS recorder, if you remember those back in the day, the ones that had the separate VHS machine and the separate camera. It's about that size, about that weight, it feels like. And mine doesn't have batteries in it, so I couldn't imagine what it would weigh with 6 or 8 D cells in it, or that NiCad battery pack. It's a biggin. Now this has to be one of the coolest little portable radio and television combinations I've come across. With all those little switches and buttons and dials, it just has this tactile feeling that you just want to get down there and mess around with it. So what do you guys think? Do you remember these when they came out? Do you have memories with one? Did your family members have one? Or for those that came along a little bit later, did you have a Sony Watchman? What are your thoughts about that? How do you think they compare? That's all I have for this week. I appreciate you guys watching and taking the time out of your busy day to take a look at this video with me. Now, if you like the channel and you like the videos I come out with, please consider subscribing to the channel. It costs you nothing, but it really helps me out. And give me a like on the video too. Well, until next time, I've been Chad here at the Vintage Electronics channel. Happy listening and happy watching.